This is the second half of a video that ended up being way too long. So we're going to be talking about nixtamalization of corn in this video and finish up this idea of storing and doing nixtamalization of corn. So thanks for watching and we hope you enjoy it. I've done an awful lot of research on corn and nixtamalization, so I want to show you a couple of results. First of all, this was from my very first batch of nixtamalizing corn. This is now called Nixtamal because this is the corn. Nothing else is done to it. It's been washed and cleaned after it went through the process. And then some of this very same corn I put in my dehydrator, and it is now ready to be put through my grinder to make cornmeal. So with this corn right here that is still damp from being processed, there's no more of the alkaline solution on this. It's been rinsed and rinsed and rinsed. And then we can run this through a grinder and make masa and tamales. And here we can run this through my grinder, different grinders. I cannot put wet things through my regular wheat grinders, but I have another old one that I'm using for this. This will go through my grain mill, and we can turn this into a grit, the size that is perfect for, guess what? Grits. And so we're going to be doing lots of experimenting with this. Here is 2 cups of that corn, just right out of the bag. It was very interesting. The many different sources that I went to, every single source had a different way of doing this. I'm not kidding. Even the instructions on the back of packages differed. And so when that happens, as I do research, what I realize is it is the end result that counts, and there are a lot of ways to get there. Now, some of you who are very familiar with this have your own routine of doing it. I may not do it in the same way that you do, but if our end result is about the same, then that is okay. What has to happen here in order to free the niacin, as we talked about, is and get that tough cuticle off the outside of the corn kernel, is to give it a bath in a highly alkaline solution. Well, where do we get alkaline? If you want to do it the old traditional way, they did it over campfires with big ugly pots and wooden spoons and lye. That was the original way of doing it. Or you can use wood ash from hardwood burns. Not doing that. In the 1980s, USDA came out and said that people were using lye in their homes to do this. They gave an alternative using baking soda. And when I read about the baking soda way of doing this, people said, yes, it works, but it does leave a little bit of a taste. And so they prefer using a lye substitute. And so that's where this pickling lime comes in. And this is what I'm going to use. Pickling lime is calcium hydroxide. It is a lime derivative. Its pH, and we're going to test the pH here in just a minute, you'll find that it's very, very high. It's about an 11 or a 12. The pH on baking soda is about an 8. So this is not as strong of an alkali as the lime is. There's a way that you can bake this, just put it on a cookie sheet and bake it for an hour at 350. And the pH goes up because it creates a chemical reaction. Well, why do that? If the pH is the same, and that's what we're concerned about, is the degree of alkalinity. And so either, oh, this says 9.0. I must have tested it at one point in time. So the pH is what we're concerned with. And so if you want it up to 12, 11 or 12, then just use lime. Now, lime is not so caustic that when you put your finger in it, which we will not do, you're going to pull out only bones left on your hand. It's not like that. But there are some precautions that we need to take. We don't want to breathe in the dust. It's a good idea to wear eye protection unless you're super careful. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to add some water to this, and then we're going to add a little bit of this pickling lime. We're going to stir it all together. We're going to put it on the stove and we're going to boil it. Now, it was so interesting. Some people say boil it only for 10 minutes. Others say, well, you have to boil it 30 minutes. Others say you simmer it all night. Most everyone said you bring it to a boil for a certain period of time, then you turn off the heat and put the lid on, and then you let it sit overnight. You can leave it on the burner if you want, but you don't have to leave the heat on. I've done it 3 different ways now, and they all turn out about the same product as near as I can tell. First thing that we do after measuring this corn out is we're going to rinse it. One thing that one of the people that I watched on this said was that you can put the corn from the bag into a bowl of water, swirl it around, and then anything that floats after that you want to skim off and get rid of, because that's where the debris then will float. I've tried this a couple of times and it works, sort of. See, most of these look good to me and I don't see much debris. There's a little piece. So you can spend all day pulling out debris. I was at first going to go through that entire bag and pull out all the debris. After 2 pounds, I was done. So I'm going to see there's a little teeny tiny kernel of corn. There's not much here. So this looks pretty good. And see, there's no mud. And there wasn't when I was first rinsing it. Okay, so here it goes. A little more rinsing, just to be sure. And then in the pot. Now I'm going to put, this is 2 cups of corn. I'm going to put 6 cups of water in. Got ahead of myself there. Okay. So then the next thing is I'm going to put in the pickling lime. All right, so with this proportion of corn and water in the pot, we need about 1/2 tablespoon, and even the amounts of the pickling lime differed from person to person. But I liked about 1/2 tablespoon. That seemed to work quite well. Now I just puffed some out and I don't want to breathe it. So that's close enough to 1/2 tablespoon. I'm just going to dump it right in there. Some people say you have to mix up the lime water first before the corn goes in. Other people say, no, you don't. So I'm for whatever's easiest. And it dissolves very readily. And I just got this pickling lime on Amazon. It is Mrs. Wage's pickling lime. It comes in several different flavors, and I just bought the plain pickling lime. All right, now we are going to take the pH of this so that you can see. Piece of litmus paper. Check it out. Woo. So there's 11, there's 12. No, there's 11, here's 12. I think it's pretty close to 11, between 11 and 12. So that is a pretty strong alkaline solution. I'm getting low on litmus paper. So it's a good thing that I have 3 new ones in the cabinet. I buy them in 3, so I'm ready to go. Now what we're going to do is put this over on the stove, and I'm going to bring it to a boil. And we're going to boil it. I'm going to boil it for 20 minutes. Then I'm just going to turn the heat off, leave it there overnight. It is 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I'll be back out here about 6 o'clock in the morning. So it's going to be 13 hours. You know what? That's okay. So I'm going to just put this on the stove, and then I'll show you what we're going to do. All right, so first I'm going to show you the equipment. And by the way, I do not find this process tedious at all. It goes really fairly fast. I was excited about that. So we're on a septic system. I need a catch bowl for the alkaline water. Then I need these 2 bowls to manipulate the corn after we pour off the alkaline water. I'm going to be working in my sinks. Some of the corn is going to spill out into the sinks. And so to prepare my sinks, I'm going to steramine them right now so that they are completely sanitized. I'm not going to be working here, but I'm going to just sanitize this area as well. Clean dish towel. I'm going to wipe it. Same with the sinks. Now, is that 100% germ-free? No, it isn't. But it is sanitized to the degree that we need to. All right, now let me show you what it looks like after it has sat out for about, this is about 10 hours. So again, the litmus paper. And again, we are very, very high alkaline. It's still at 11. So it's been sitting in this high alkaline solution for, counting boiling time, for over 12 hours. Okay, so now what do we do? I am not going to put on any special gloves, although you could if you feel like you need to. So I am going to, and I don't want this in our septic system, so I'm going to catch this alkaline solution in this catch bowl. It really smells good. I can smell the corn already. So, and this is not hurting my hand. Now, I'm going to set this aside, and that goes dumped in a special place in on our property a little bit later. I'm going to rinse it, and you can see the yellow water coming out the bottom. Give it a really good rinse. Much more clear now than it was. And now I'm going to put some water over here in this bowl. Stir it around. And you're going to see a lot of debris in the water. Guess what that is? That is the cuticle that is coming off the corn. And you're going to want to just start washing it a little bit like this. And sometimes I do it in the water, and sometimes I do it after I've drained the water. Most of that alkaline water is gone. Now I'm just going to pour it here. Rinse it again, and I'm using cold water. Quite a bit of debris is flowing all the way through. I prefer a wide bowl doing this because when I do this, the corn goes everywhere. Okay, now look at my hands. Disregard the corn kernels, but look at all the other gunk. That is part of the cuticle that is coming off. So I'm just going to rub this really well. And this is my 4th batch now. And then I'm just going to repeat and repeat and repeat this process until when I put water in this bowl, it doesn't look yellowish and it doesn't look like it is full of debris. So I'm going to continue off camera. It takes probably between 7 and 10 times of doing this process of rubbing and rinsing and draining and rubbing and rinsing and draining for it to get clear. So I'll be back when we're all clear. See how clear the water is now? It's so much better than it was before. Could there be a few more on there? Probably, yes. Now, a couple things I want to show you. Some people, on this corn it's not too bad, but on some corns, this little end piece right here that was once hooked to the cob, they go through kernel by kernel and pull those off. Not in a million years am I going to do that. It has nutrition in it. I looked up that piece and it does have some nutrition in it. It will mean that there are little darker flecks in what our end product was going to be, and oh well, I don't mind that at all. So this is so much larger than it was before. Let me show you that. All right, here's some of our original corn, and here's some of the Nixtamalize. So it is much larger. This is not yet hominy. What has to happen now if we're going to be making hominy is, now this is edible. Actually, it tastes quite lovely. Quite a little bit different. You can tell that it's different than what normal corn or what I'm used to as normal corn tastes like. But it's not hominy yet. This would need to be boiled quite a bit. What this is the Nixtamalize. It's damp. We're going to drain it and run it through here one more time and let a lot of water drain out. Then we'll put it in a bottle just like this. And from here, we can go to masa for tortillas and for tamales. Some of this I will probably not freeze dry. I will dehydrate so that it is like this. And then I can also store this. And then this is Nixtamalized. This is Nixtamalize dehydrated that I can then turn into cornmeal or a little bit coarser for grits. And then we can make polenta and a whole lot of other things too. So we're going to be having a lot more fun with corn as we go forward. So thank you for joining us in this chapter of our corn adventure, and we will see you at our next video.